wanted her just to be better.
Yeah, but did you?
I mean, that's really, you know. I remember she 1975. She was ill again, and my mum had to go. Mum and Dad went down to London to get her. She came back up, and she was in hospital for a while. And my dad, who used to be quite into the Labour Party then, through the councillor, got her a council house up the road from us. Yeah. And we thought she got a house for her two children herself there. Basically, she'd be all right.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of material then, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you have something material, that will sort it out.
Yeah. And I think I don't know, but I think as loved ones, there's a bit of you don't acknowledge quite as much as you should or could do, because you don't want to. There's a bit of a defence, protection of yourself in there, because sometimes you're taking on other people's pain and distress, and you're trying to protect yourself so that you can actually be of some use. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, I think it
No,
does,
it
especially when you
does. It
talk
makes
about,
sense.
if you, as a parent, for instance, you know, that thing you have as a parent when you've got older children, you know, if they're going through a difficult place, part of you wants to go back to when they were like 10,
Yes.
where just you being there
Yeah.
would make it better.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know that you being there when they're a big person
Yeah.
doesn't make it better, but actually you still need to be there.
Yeah, you do. You do, and it's trying to also take your time and be led by them and not by yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's quite easy, isn't it, I think? Because I've had this situation fairly recently. I'm still having it, to be honest. And I'm finding that I feel a bit lost, because instinctively I want to say certain things or guide a certain way. But then I'm also tuned in and more aware of the sensitivities
Yeah,
around it.
absolutely.
So there's all those,
Yeah.
and then again it depends on what the illness is,
Yeah.
what it is.
I understand that bit.
But then also it's about what are you permitted to do? Because if it's not you, then you have to also kind of look at the permission that comes with helping somebody. Because sometimes I think we think helping somebody doesn't require us to really, you know, kind of to seek their permission. I mean, we did that with our children. Therefore, we'll do the same with the people around us. So, well, for me, I've been wanting to have this conversation for as long. I mean, we usually do have conversations in the office, so it's not like anything new. So, yeah. So it's a conversation I've been wanting.
Conversation with Rube.
Yeah, I was saying with Shirley, to be honest, with Shirley. I was thinking about that this morning, you know, I mean, I'm like, oh, yeah. We always have, you know, like some nuggets,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, surely, I said it today. I'm like Longani there. It's really a pleasure to have you here today, because I've had some great conversations with you over the last year and a half working at SACMHA. And even when we were downstairs talking and you said to me, how are you? One of the things I get from you when I talk to you is that you do a how are you and you mean it. You know, I want to find out about you. Whereas so often when you talk to people, someone says, so how are you? But you know, it's just courtesy.
It's just courtesy, you know, like the how are you on your way.
You know, just, I'm all right, you just move on. But with you, it's always like, if I'm asking you, it's actually, I do want to know. And I said today in the meeting with David that one of the things you said to me in our last conversation was something, you were sharing something with me. And you said, I feel safe to share this with you. And that was very powerful for me, because actually it encapsulated a feeling which I want to feel with people, you know, actually safety. You know, we've just been touching there about helping people, etc. there. But from my own perspective, that I need to feel safe with people, to be able to share with people. And so I think it's a really important thing, and it stayed with me the past couple of weeks. That feels safe.
No.
It is really important that you feel safe because I think freedom to open up only comes when you feel safe. And I guess when I say that, it means that I trust. Not necessarily that you won't share it, but if you do share, you will share it in a safe context. If you share it with somebody, because if I was sharing something and I wanted it to be confidential, then I would say that. So being safe is not necessarily about confidentiality. It's about trusting the person with that information.
Yes, absolutely.
It's trusting, and that has come by us, building that. Having those open conversations and talking in the office and being able to challenge each other sometimes. We don't necessarily agree all the time, but our conversations have been thought-provoking. I feel that I've learnt and I feel a connection. So it's good to have that.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
So, because for me, I think the interest has always been, what is your genesis? I mean, like, have you always been the Shirley we know, or is the Shirley was sort of chilled back because she retired and then decided, you know what, I'm going to do some work, like, back to SACMHA again. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that I've always been a bit this Shirley. I think so. I mean, I at school I did residential care. At college, so I think I've got that caring, supportive nature in me. I think growing up as a child, I was I'm a twin. Don't know if you know that.
Right.
Remember that I'm a twin, yeah. And my sister, she. I mean, we've always loved each other, but we were very different as children. She was a bit more out there and outgoing. I was the one who would be, sort of looking after people and saying to my sister, just you leave people alone, don't bully people, you do your thing, but leave my friends alone, So I think I've always had that sort of caring nature. I grew up, my mum and dad had quite an aggressive relationship. And I think I was very protective of my mother. So I think I've always had that protection, that kind of caring nature from being a child, really.
Did you grow up in Sheffield, though?
I did. I grew up in Sheffield, yeah. We grew up in Sheffield, and but we grew up quite separated sometimes. We had a period where we were cared for by social services because mum and dad were in a precarious position. Mum didn't have anywhere to go with us, so they had to look after us for a bit. We were fostered for a short while.
That's quite a lot, isn't it? I mean, especially in those days as well, black children. First of all, black families often in those days, even as a child, you knew things were difficult in some families. They stayed together. Despite everything there. So when a family did split up, it was quite a big thing.
Yeah, it was a big thing. I mean, and it was some of it was really confusing because my dad still lives in the family home that we moved out of. And that's something that, I talk about sometimes, about how I feel about that. And my mum worked, and sometimes she had to leave us by herself and go to work. And I remember
them days.
I remember her telling us that a neighbour reported her because she left us on our own. But I don't ever remember being hungry. My mum talks about mashing potato and frying onion and mixing it together to feed us, to make sure, and so in terms of am I the Shirley that I think I've always had that that sort of open ears, interest, support.
You know what you just said there about your family? Was that something which you felt able to talk about, I know, early adulthood? Because I meet people now, our age, who talk about those family dynamics who I knew and I didn't realise. Because we never, maybe when you're early 20s, you're not talking about those sorts of things. But now I hear more people say those sort of things. So has there been a change in the way in which you felt you've been able to, in a sense, process that period?
Yeah, and I would agree. I think it's come later on. I think it's come later on when I felt stronger emotionally as well, because I've been through a period of, still living with depression, which I've been living with for what feels like forever, but I mean, I'm 63 now, I can't do the maths. I'm 63.
We're big people.
Yeah, we're big people, we're grown folk.
I turned 63 just the other day. Yes, but we're doing all right.
We're doing okay. We're doing okay.
Yeah, but I did sort of go through a really bad period when I was in my sort of 23, 24 time. After my first child, and that was quite an horrendous time for me with my mental health. But I do think that it's later on in life that I've been able to share the detail and to kind of unpick some of it a bit and feel okay about talking about it.
Yeah, well, I'm with you exactly the same, because I look back on those days in the 60s, you know, growing up, if you were born and raised there in the 60s, and I comment on this a lot in this podcast there, having read David Harewood's biography, and he talks about his 60s, in the 60s growing up. And there's some horrendous bits to it, some really, or more better to say, difficult bits in it. And I think, I know that. I can see that. I experienced that. I remember that feeling of discomfort. I remember the strain and the stresses, etc. there. But I wasn't talking about it in my 20s. The most we talk about it in my 20s with guys is we make fun. We make joke about it, you know. So I was with someone the other day, and they were talking about someone, and they were talking about some guy who had died, you know, family. And they said they used to live so-and-so and so-and-so. And they said, that man could beat, you know. And they were talking about how you could beat in the street, you know, so kids would get beaten in the street. And there was a woman on my street who used to do that. And she would sit on top of her children and beat in front of everybody.
In front of everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up with that. I think, you know, like sometimes for me, coming into this part of the world and being part of this community I am part of is I always marvel at the similarities in terms of how, you know, we were heavily melanated, how our experience, you know, kind of basically cuts across, you know, kind of oceans and stuff. It is still the same. You know what I'm saying? The way we process life seems to have a similarity that's so uncanny. Hence why, you know, like I'm finding that some of the conversations I never really managed to have back home, I'm having them here with people who look like me. They may have grown in different parts of the world, but this circumstances are still the same.
But it still come back to that feeling of safety, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can only, and in a sense, you have to feel safe with yourself.
That's it. That's it.
Because, you know, it's discomforting, you know. So you've got to make some sense of it. So, for instance, I think about, say, for my dad, and I think about some of the things I've, you know, looked back on, thinking, yeah, it was difficult, he was hard, he was this, he was that. But I do make more of a sense of the life he had.
Yes.
His frustrations. He didn't know how to. And I used to always say to myself in my 40s, but at least his efforts afforded me some space to be able to make more sense of what was going on around me. So I didn't just sort of keep that cycle going on.
Yeah, because it's like this morning I was asking Dawn a question which I asked. I was talking to my missus about what is my life without the trauma? You know what I'm saying?
Because he likes his nice, easy opening questions.
No.
Good morning.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
He doesn't say hello, good morning, what did you watch on TV last night?
No, but that's the thing. I don't watch much on TV. Yeah, like cause it's like I'm aware. I'm acutely aware that, especially for us as a people of color, we have to deal with a lot and to continue to deal with a lot. But what makes us who we are, I think sometimes is the struggles that we have to deal with, which are necessary. The troubles are necessary. I mean, we didn't have to deal with as much as we have to deal with as a people, but we are here. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think your life is like without that initial crisis at 23? In your 20s.
He does the easy question, Shirley.
No, I'm just curious. You know what I mean?
What would my life be like without the trouble? Well, I guess a lot of people might say, we could all say, because if you unpick the terminology around trauma, a lot of people would say, well, your trauma looked like this, or it had this element to it, but somebody who's not experienced any of what I've experienced or you might still talk about trauma.
Yeah.
Because trauma could be losing a parent, and that could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
It could be losing a child at birth or being forced into, sort of aborting a child or so trauma can come from. So I'm not sure if you went out that. I think if we asked 100 people, if you've never had trauma, I think they'd all be able to identify some trauma.
Yeah, no, that's
well,
true.
I don't think you could have life without. I mean, again, it's about that definition of trauma, which is loss, grief, difficult periods, things which have not been right for you, etc. We've all had them. I think maybe today we're able to give it more of. Give more language to it. I think we're able to afford ourselves, and afford sounds wrong, but I think we're able nowadays to actually accept that actually people have had trauma. If you take, for instance, PTSD, people are fighting in a war. And then they first came out post the First World War. So there they are in the trenches, in the mud with the rats everywhere, etc., dead bodies everywhere and so forth there. And then they were surprised that people were having breakdowns. I mean, and there's been wars forever. That was the first time people started to think, well, actually, the reason why that person's like they are is because they've had a post-traumatic syndrome, as opposed to they're just a coward.
Well, that's true.
So we have different ways of looking at things. I'm pleased that actually I'm of this later generation. I would have been one of those cowards.
You'll have never gone to war.
Because
you'll have never gone. No. I think for me, it's always, because I think sometimes it's like, because I think we will never know empathy until either we have had somebody who either gave us reference. You know what I'm saying? Because I think I look at people from that thing, like what made them the way they are, the beautiful human they are. You know what I'm saying? Because I think sometimes, the most in tune people are the ones who have had to go through it, and they have come out of the other side having sort of like something that somehow within that process is like the fairness, or the like they're saying, the diamond in the thing, like that compressed and then changed as a result. So
So use that metaphor since we're in Sheffield. Let's go with the crucible.
The crucible. No, it is the crucible. Yes. I think it is the crucible. You know what I mean? That thing that actually made us who we are. Because I think because sometimes we come across people who basically cannot relate to anything because their life has been just one smooth sailing.
Well, that's that idea of the privilege, isn't it? And one thing which we know from people from the African Caribbean community living in Britain is that privilege is not there.
Yeah.
No matter what your background might be, socioeconomic background, they'll actually, you cannot compare that even if they were of the highest socioeconomic, they're still black in this country. So we've got that as a shared thing. And as we were saying from the beginning, those of us who, you and I are the same generation there, we've got, in a sense, our own shared memory. Of a period of time. And I don't know about you, but you ever look at some of those photos and images of the 60s and you see little black children running around. You picture yourself, don't you?
Because you think you can relate to the way they dressed or the street that they lived in. And, I think they very much felt a bit more, especially in school and the community, felt a little bit. There was something different about the community then, though. I think. I think it seemed as though we were together.
Yes.
And I think maybe, I don't know, it might be just about Sheffield, that because we are more dispersed, and I think the way that our community looks is changing. Our families, the way our family looks is changing in terms of diversity. If I went to a wedding 10 years ago, the people attending my family wedding would look different to if I go to a wedding today or a christening today. So there's some things changing, and I think it's interesting, and I think we've got to embrace it for us to maintain our culture and our ethnicity and our mental well-being. I think we've got to embrace it and work with it and make sure that we keep injecting and maintaining the culture.
Yeah. And it's important you say, or interesting you say that, because you and I are both grandparents, which is, you feel more of an urgency. I feel more of an urgency.
We are all grandparents here, bro. We are all grandparents. You say grandparents.
As a grandparent, there's a bit of an urgency. And again, I think I've said this on this podcast before. When I've watched Who Do You Think You Are, and you've had Jessica Ennis and you've had Naomi Harris there, and Naomi Harris is able to go back to her fifth-generation grandparent, born in 1808 in Jamaica. Wow. Yeah. And that's amazing there. And I think to myself, I didn't know my grandparents. My children didn't know their grandparents. I'm a grandparent. Yeah. So there's a bit of an obligation to pass on something, more than just the incidental. I know the incidental is important because the incidental in a sense is culture. The incidental is you're just doing the things together, etc. But there are some of those stories which actually you've got a bit of a bridge to, so that when I've gone, that bridge is gone, basically. And I think it is important for my own mental health. And I think it's important for the grandchildren's mental health there. I'm saying grandchildren in that broader sense there of those many different people who represent the sort of like Caribbean, African sort of like grandchildren. And as you said before, there'll be a great diversity as well.
Yeah, there will be a diversity.
And so it's important to have that there, but I think it's a bit of a responsibility for us.
For us, it definitely is. I mean, last week my granddaughter who just started school, she had to do something to do with Black history. So she's going to a school that's predominantly, she's probably one of 5 Black children in that school. But she'd got the opportunity to do something around Black history, and she chose to write about her great-grandma. Now, she could have chosen to write about Mary C. Cole or, the famous people.
Yes, the famous people,
But in a way, it was really good to actually spend a bit of time going back about great-grandma.
And that's your mum?
My mum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I thought that was
Sister
really
Good.
Yes, Sister Good. Yeah. So I think just encouraging them whenever we can to talk about not just acknowledge, of course, the famous people, but talk about the people close to you that you're relating to today, because you start by asking them about their passports and what made them come here. But then you get to know more when you start talking about what did your dad think when he was coming over here? Well, he had to sell a piece of land to pay for me to come over here. You know, so and then you start talking about lots of other things.
So were you born here?
Sure, I was born here.
You were born in England?
I was
You're
born
in
here.
England?
I'm born in England. Born and bred at Sheffield. At Sheffield, yes.
Did you have siblings born in Jamaica and come over?
Yes. Now there's another.
That's another story, isn't it?
You know what? You know the conversation I'd love to, because I've wanted to talk to my brother about this, about being left at home in Jamaica, and then how it was for him coming here, because we've always had a very different relationship, and about how that shapes him.
It does.
Yes,
because I've spoken. This is a weird thing. I have had yesterday. I had a conversation with my mother-in-law about that whole thing of coming from Jamaica to here, but she had a life of sort of like privileged lifestyle back in Jamaica. So she and her sister stayed behind. So she came here before her sister came, but she came because it will be a 12th birthday, and she was saying the reason for that was because at 12 you were viewed as an adult, so you had to pay adult fare. So she came before she turned 12.
All right.
But her sister she was already older anyway, so she had to pay full fare. But and when you speak to people who left, they're saying that we came here to find families, siblings we had not met. And life was different.
Yeah.
Again,
it must have been quite something for... I mean, I've got a brother and a sister, sister's passed now, who came over. And I don't remember my sister coming over because she came over when I was only 2. She was 14. But my brother came over when he was 10. One weekend, Mum said, Dad's not here. So where is he? He's gone to Manchester to pick up Peter. And she then he comes and he comes from Jamaica, St. Mary, Jamaica. And he lands at Easter time. And them days, Easter, it snowed always. So it's freezing. Yeah. And we're living in a 2 up, 2 down terraced house. And this Jamaican boy turns up at the yard speaking like Jamaican. And we gave him breakfast, cornflakes with cow's milk. And we still laugh and joke about it now because he took one mouthful and spat it out. We can't eat this.
For the caramel porridge.
Yes. Look, he said that, it's funny, he was treated differently, and he was treated differently.
But your parents were his. I mean, your parents were his parents.
Yes. His mum was, not his dad. So he had that as well. And then he comes to the house and he's got these English, in his eyes, English brothers there, and just treated differently. You know, there's no two ways about it. I felt he was treated differently. So that whole generation, now sort of like born in the mid-50s, that sort of early 50s there, they came over as like 10, 12-year-olds, and there were a whole heap of them coming at one time, wasn't there? Because as you said, families were being joined together around that period there.
There were. It's really interesting, though. It would be interesting to hear from quite a group of those individuals. And see whether it was different for the males to the females. Yeah. You know what ages. Yeah. I mean, my brother came and got married quite swiftly because my mum and one of her church sisters had cooked up some plan for him to get married.
Oh, like an arranged marriage.
Yes, it was an arranged marriage. Yeah, it didn't survive. I have to say, but but yeah, I mean, I think. I think he my brother. He did struggle when he came because he was very happy in Jamaica. Him and my cousin, they were left with grandparents and they were very happy. They were spoilt. They wanted to go back to their grandparents. You know, they had a good life over there. Whereas I know that some people didn't experience
No.
good care once their parents left them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
because
another story.
it's the same
isn't it?
thing we were talking about earlier today. Like, for me, I was raised, me and my younger brother, we were raised by the grandparents. And when we went back to live with my parents now, there was another sibling. I still read my other sibling. I say, dude, I didn't know you until you're about 4. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because like suddenly we came home, we came to a house, a small house, after living out in the country where we had everything was out there.
But in a way,
Space.
What we've three of us have experienced, you've got families now with recent sort of immigrant communities in Sheffield. They're experiencing exactly that now.
Exactly
So
the
if
same.
you're, families there from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Congo, Cameroon, you're here as maybe the man or the woman has come over, got a job as a nurse, worked for a couple of years, sent for one and two over time, etc. And you see that family sort of like forming there, but it's also going to have its own internal dynamics to it, which can be difficult as well, because the family is the site of so many things,
that's
both
true.
good and bad, which can actually amplify the difficulties out there in society. And we work in an organisation which was founded on mental health, and we
That's
see
it.
it.
No, we do.
You hear people talk when they're talking. You will hear them talk about family. The difficulties they've got with a dad, the difficulty they've got with so and so there. So it'll come through in its own way.
Absolutely.
And I think it's more telling, especially for us as a community, because there's a secrecy that this cone of silence that we carry. We will never. Why I think we don't discuss the things that are going wrong, even in our homes. We just take them as. Until we leave that environment, or either the other person has passed on, who was the bone of contention. We will never really discuss, like, I wonder, because the recent one, when I went back to Zimbabwe, I was speaking about my brother who later in life we found out that he was gay. You see what I'm saying? So we never spoke about his lifestyle. I mean, we had rumors here and there. When we were growing up, he was the guy who played with the girls, and he played netball, and he was good at it. He will knit, and he was good at it. But at the same time, he could throw hands, and he was good at it. You see what I'm saying? So one of those confusing brothers. So later in life, when I went back home, I tried to broach the subject of, because I loved my brother to bits. And being the older brother, and he's the one who when they moved us to my grandparents, he's the one I moved with. So we were tight. But it's like there are certain subject areas we don't really discuss as family. Even now, even though he's passed on, my family will not talk about this. Talk about this lifestyle. Not necessarily in like some crazy. Because for me, I would have loved to know what,
Just be able to talk.
To talk, yeah. Because for me, that would have been kind of cool. Because I think sometimes, things will surprise us when we are just transparent, because sometimes our conversations don't, especially in our community, certain conversations don't happen because we castigate them to a taboo pile or some other pile that we think, don't touch that. There's this unspoken rule that you don't broach certain subjects, you know what I'm saying? But it would have been an interesting one.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think as well, in your family, somebody might tell you that they're gay, or that they're transgender, or that they've been self-harming, or they took an overdose, and certain ones will know, and but it's not talked about openly. It's like there's a bit of pockets of secrecy, pockets of don't go there with that. There's something on the TV at the moment, and what's it called?
Lover Man.
Lover Man.
Oh yeah, Lover Man.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I'm reading the book for my book club, so I'm not watching.
Okay.
So don't tell me too much about the
I'm not
TV
gonna tell
bit
you
there.
anything.
And Lenny James, I love Lenny James anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's excellent and needs to open a conversation.
But it'd be interesting to open up that conversation,
Yes.
how some people will see it, because as you're talking there, about this whole notion sometimes about keeping things in, do you think sometimes there's a little bit of, that sort of like, don't talk your family business out and where you do it, what's it like? I don't know the phrase about your dirty linen, etc.
Yeah.
So actually, there's a defensiveness.
No, there is.
As opposed to, each individual, each family, each community is so complex,
Yes.
Very, very complex.
and he's rich for that complexity.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
that complexity will be all sorts of things within that, etc. there. Yet we mould ourselves and we think we have to be seen like this. Because it makes no difference how people see us.
No,
You know,
let me
it
tell
makes no
you,
difference
it
one way or
does
the
not
other.
matter.
I think, good or, that's how
It really
they've already
doesn't
got an
matter.
image about us.
Of us.
Oh yes, of course.
That people can be, but we can be, can't we? We can be very cruel and very hurtful and very judgmental, and we can be. So there's a sense of protection also,
Yes.
isn't there?
Yes.
Of protecting yourself and justifying that thing about this is our personal business, and you justify that and you keep it to
Don't
yourself.
chat me business.
Don't chat me business.
Don't chat me business.
Get everything you can
That
talk.
phrase there was one like as if I was born with that.
Yeah, that's it. So there's still that we're carrying around it because it still doesn't feel safe everywhere to share.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And we're back to that safe, aren't we?
We're back to that safe.
Yeah, because you talk that within a family there might be, and I've heard that quite a bit actually. People have said that, so and so knows in the family, so and so knows in the family there. So you choose people you feel safe to. But the family itself doesn't know, which means that actually there must be some deception going on as well. You're holding back. We all hold back something, let's be honest about that. But that must be quite, we're going back again to mental health there. If you have to hold back things from the people you love,
That's the thing.
that's a big one.
That's very true, because it's like we and I think there's a lot of things we don't discuss in the community, even when we know the information is going to help the person. The classic one, yesterday I interviewed my mother-in-law about menopause. She's 72.
Okay.
She had her hysterectomy
Hysterectomy.
at 30.
Oh my.
She still is dealing with menopause up to today.
Yeah.
Because in the course we went to, they say that, it's about 14 at the most you can deal with this thing. But then there are some people who've been dealing with this thing for years.
Yeah.
So it, in essence, talking to her, it made me aware of the fact that there is no one solution to all.
it.
So,
No.
yeah.
No,
And more so for us as people of color, because information is not passed to us, and we don't pass information to each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I think as well, I think there is often discussion sometimes in pockets, and it's amazing how unaware we can be, not of the whole subject, but of key bits of it.
That's it.
I think so, and I think we just need to keep having the conversations and feeling comfortable.
Yes.
Last week I went to the lunch club. It was the breakfast club actually, and there was some older women there. There was some younger women as well, and we impromptu menopause awareness session it was.
Yes.
And I sort of put on the table some different symptoms, and people had to choose some dots and put some dots on the symptoms that you'd experienced or that you knew about. And then I said, I tried to make a joke of it and make light of it, would I say? Because I said, under this bit here, when we're talking about, sexual interaction and about how it affects your vagina, the dry vagina. I said, there's only 2 dots. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Don't be shy. We need to get over the shyness, because if this was a report that I was going to write based on this piece of paper,
you'd be saying that
I'd be saying that this doesn't affect us black women, when actually I said, come on, I'm going to put my hand up and tell you, is there anybody else in here that has experienced that? And the hand started going like this and they started going like that. So we've got to try and find a way of...
Well, we're back to that thing about, when you're growing up, about things which can get discussed.
Yeah.
Lenny James says, when he was interviewed about the role he's playing, he said sex was never discussed in his household.
No, it never was.
And sex wasn't discussed in my household. So you end up with, and I'm not sure, I don't know what it's like now for younger people, etc. there, but, it's not discussed about it in terms of relationships, not discussed in terms of yourself as an individual, and it's still not something really discussed about.
Or the health implications.
And the health implications. I mean, when I talked before, I introduced that discussion at work about sexually, transmitted infections there, as if, it doesn't happen to us, and yet the figures that show it happens a lot to us, particularly men, but we don't talk about it there. So actually these are topics which we don't talk about, and yet these are things which are affecting us because they affect people. So why wouldn't they affect us?
Exactly.
And if we don't talk about it, no one's going to talk on our behalf, are they?
No, not at all.
Or if they are going to talk on our behalf, they're talking on our behalf with the wrong information, or with their own prejudices and all the other bits. And we've seen how that plays out in the medical report or medical practice there. That plays out in medical practice, that actually we die.
Yeah.
We get the wrong treatment.
Yeah.
And we die.
Yeah, we die.
We die,
And
we die.
equipment and treatments are not designed for us because we're not part of the research process. We're not getting involved in that sort of thing.
And we're not saying this to the point of view of damning ourselves. We're just simply saying that actually, we know some of the difficulties of being able to speak about these sorts of things because we know it. Let's be honest.
I mean, we do understand that, mostly our information has always been either manipulated and weaponized.
Yes, absolutely.
To harm us. But in your experience now, considering that your role within SACMHA is around research, kind of the link workers and all that kind of stuff. How have you found the response from the communities, especially around, kind of trying to get people to engage in research?
Well, I feel really encouraged by that because I think that people are much more engaging. And what we do find is that no matter what sort of research you're doing, particularly if you're asking people their opinion and doing surveys, we've got like a cohort of people, about 70 odd people, I would say.
That's a good number, that is.
Yeah, it's a good number that we've been going to repetitively, and we're trying to make sure that they have positive experiences so that they would bring along somebody else into that. So that's one of the things that we've set as one of our goals, is to try and sort of increase the participation.
And what sort of activities are they participating in?
Okay, so we've been doing some activities around early diagnosis of hypertension. So we know that the black community, black and African, Caribbean and Asian community are quite high levels of hypertension.
I put my hand up.
Stroke.
I've had that for 25 years now.
Yeah. So we are looking at the moment at recruiting or inviting younger people who have not been diagnosed with hypertension in terms of getting them to go into because you can go into the pharmacy now, so making it easier to be diagnosed. So getting people to go into the pharmacy and see whether the pharmacy, it's a bit like secret shopper. So you go into the pharmacy and you say, I'd like to get my blood pressure checked, and see what the response is of the pharmacy, because pharmacies are very busy, and so they're doing a bit of research around that. So we're at the moment trying to invite some younger people. We've been doing some work around cancer, about early diagnosis around cancer, There's been some research around trying out more technical wearable devices that measure your blood pressure, measure your diabetes levels. So wearing devices that then send information to a computer. So you don't have to go to the hospital now. Your information goes from here, computer straight. So that sort of things people are really interested in. Answering surveys about your experience of living in the northeast of Sheffield. We've talked to about 30 odd people around that, because the council are wanting to look at what can they do better, what's working well and what can they do better. We've done a lot of work around diabetes, sort of looking at raising awareness, how people are changing their behaviours, people sharing their experience of living with diabetes, what's worked for them.
Because, diabetes is one of those where you'd hear stories of people, about always got diabetes and how their life had changed, just dramatically. And you're thinking, you're getting into sort of like, let's call it into your 60s. And actually, people are struggling. They're struggling
with that. I mean, it's really encouraging because we have got some people who are being prepared to actually try medications. Because I think at the moment that's a bit of a sticking point. That when you start talking about injecting people with something or taking a medication, we seem to have a bit of a blockage there. But that's to be expected.
Yeah, and again, I mean, there was something in the paper recently about. I think it's something like 80% of the white population of Britain who are eligible, have taken the COVID vaccination. 40% for Black and Asian groups. And again, going back to all the medicalisation, et cetera, that people are quite wary of, what the medics do, basically.
That's true. And I think also because, I mean, like kind of going to your point about, the research, research, is that we don't really ever get an opportunity to interact with some of these bodies that do research in our communities. But that's changing now because we are having conversations with the universities, with the NHS.
But some people ask the question, but we have to be wary.
Yes.
That's thrown. That's you have to be wary because I don't know if that's the case, but people say you have to be wary because people's experience before with organisations has been. But at the same time, the need, what you've been outlining there, Shirley, about the potential benefit. Doing nothing keeps us where we are.
Well, we do try to. Sort of encourage people to get involved, even if they, particularly if it's older people. Getting involved is really important, not necessarily for them and this generation, but for their children and their grandchildren to improve things for them. So sometimes when you talk to people about improving things for grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that they have said is an important aspect. And I think, we just make sure that people get information and get feedback about what they've been involved in, because that's one of the things. People come along, they ask you lots of questions, you answer your question, and they don't come back to you. Or you might get 10 organisations that have got some funding to look at diabetes. So, we've got 20 people who don't mind talking about diabetes, but I have to write back to them and say, I'm sorry, but we've just had this conversation with our group of community people who are willing to talk. We can share that information with you, but we don't want to go back to them again.
We want to be building on it. We want to
build on that.
We want to see that there's been some sort of movement and progression there. I mean, I know at the prostate cancer event back in 2022 it was, and we got 120 odd black men at that event. We didn't have enough food, which is something. And someone asked a question to the professor, not just tell me about the rates of, it's black men are double this, double that. Why? And she said she couldn't answer that question because there hadn't been any research on it. And, that's all. You know, if your work and the work of SACMHA and others like SACMHA there can be pushing the university hospitals into researching into those things which affect black people more, then that's got to be a good thing. But we've got to see that progress along the way there, because it was a very simple sort of why question.
Why question?
Why? Tell us why. Why is this?
Why
And they
is
could
this?
not answer it.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, I was quite naive. I thought she'd have some sort of answer.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
But to be honest, I think for me, especially when I spoke to the doctor there, because we had that conversation prior to even that event, prior to even the setting up of the 1 in 4. And I was speaking around the normalization of the conversation, around prostate cancer, which I think is important. The same way I think the normalization of the conversation around menopause will really benefit the community, especially the black community, because we are still finding out that now there's still no go-to places for those.
Yeah, but that one you talk about menopause there, you're talking also about relationships.
Yeah, but relationships.
Because, a critical part of relationship there, which is, it's communication, it's about understanding, and to do that, you have to be able to talk or to show some different forms of intimacy, whatever it might be.
That's the thing, because for us who are married or whatever, you're in a relationship, because the dynamics of the whole sexual dynamic changes. Because suddenly now it's like half of the time you are not wanted anywhere close.
You're like,
you know what I'm saying? No, but I'm saying, can you imagine as a dude though?
I am a dude.
You're a dude, of course. Imagine now you are in a position where suddenly it's like you're being starved of your treat. For lack of a better term.
Well, it's a way. I don't know if I'd put it that way, but
I know. For lack of a better term, bro. For lack of a better term.
A way, I don't know. I mean, I think clearly it's about how do you
navigate that?
How do you navigate it? How do you have how does your relationship with your intimate other sort of like develop and deepen over a course of time, as opposed to maybe sort of like you get into a sort of like, not battle lines, but you become sort of slightly separate. And that separation can get wider and wider, I'd imagine. Into a sort of coolness.
I think it does.
Because if you can't find other ways of being intimate with one another there, showing a love to one another there, then that must make some difficulty for it there. And, if you want to do the 30, 40, and you celebrated 40 years, congratulations and fantastic there. But if you want to be doing that, and people do. People get together because they want to be together. And they want to be together. And if they have children, they want to be together for a long time. Because there's nothing more beautiful than that, to be there and you've got your grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren all around you. Again, back to mental health there. There isn't a better place than when you've got, for me personally, when you've got your children and grandchildren around you. I was saying to Shirley when we met, she asked me how things, and I had my grandchildren yesterday, and one of the most beautiful things too was my daughter arrived at 9:30 to drop them off there, and it felt great. She's giving me her children. And she's off to work, and then I've got the children, and then it's with them for the day there.
They're going to spoil the goodness out
but that's mental health for someone, of my age there. I mean, I used to always think, I can't think of anything worse to be in your 60s and if you've had children and your children didn't want to talk to you. I honestly cannot think of anything.
Thought, man.
And there's guys out there.
There's
plenty of guys like that.
It's a reality. It's a reality. But to honest, to close off, because for me, the conversation was gonna just be about an hour full of menopause.
We're glad we kept him
No,
from it.
no, come on. You know what? No, for real.
Back to that.
No.
He needs a
No,
one-to-one,
no,
Shirley.
I
He
do.
needs
No,
a
no.
one-to-one.
No, you know why? No. It's because I was asked recently. There is a group of women that meets on a Sunday, and one of the things that they say, and it's black women actually, they say that they have no reference point or space which deals with menopause, you know. And then I remember saying to my missus, I was like, yeah, I've recently become a championish for
soon to be
menopause.
advocate.
Yeah, and soon to be advocate. You know what I'm saying?
She said, not in my house.
No. She's cool with it. No, she's cool because she's also going through menopause.
Yes,
you know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? And my sister-in-law is, my mother-in-law is. So the conversation around menopause for us is just is a
So you're
normal
normalizing
conversation.
it.
Yeah, it's very normal. But for me, I would love to kind of get to a point where as men, we understand what menopause is about. Because also it prepares us for the eventuality, because it's going to come.
But you know
We'll
what
have
they
to deal
often
with it.
say? I mean, feminists often say that women have been changing for the past whatever years,
Yes.
but men haven't changed much.
My point exactly. No, for real.
Hey,
No,
that's
but
I'm full of these sobering things.
no, it's true.
Well, but there is a. I mean, we can often focus on the woman, but there is a period for men as well. I know they talk about the male menopause, but that's not andropause.
The andropause, yeah.
Which is another conversation, isn't it? I think in terms of normalising the conversation, I think just do what you're doing, and I think we're all in these WhatsApp groups, aren't we? If somebody shares information with you about them, my family WhatsApp group is anything I'm passing on through work to do with menopause, I'm putting it in the family WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
So people are getting.
Well, I'm in two men's group, black men's group,
Yes.
and I will definitely get it onto the agenda
please.
for us to talk about menopause.
Thank you.
Yeah,
because all the guys there, we're all of a sort of similar age there, and if they've got partners and wives, that they've either gone through something, which or they're going through something now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
that'd be really good.
that again is a resource for us.
Yeah.
Because I'm sort of aware that there's a lot of things we are way behind.
Yeah.
When it comes to
I don't know about way
information.
beyond, because I actually think that discussion around menopause, just to use an example there, I don't think it's talked about across all communities much at all. But we're not here talking about all communities.
Yeah.
We're talking about our community.
Yeah.
And therefore we've got some control, not control, that's what our responsibility is to actually further that conversation amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
So as an ending point,
Yes.
I am currently in recording, filming. I'm having interviews with women who have gone through, who are going through menopause, in terms of, remember the questions you gave me. I added to those questions, but it's about finding out, when did they start noticing the symptoms and what the symptoms have been and how they are dealing with it. What support is there for them, either from their GPs or, from their family structure. Because I think it is about kind of forming that village around that kind of issue, and in the hope that maybe down the line, the 20-something-year-old will suddenly find that they are going through similar symptoms earlier than it's been said. They are able to talk to somebody about that before, instead of suffering on their own.
Yeah.
So we usually end with this question: what's your thing? What is that thing that kind of puts you in your space of nirvana, so to speak?
Well, at the moment, I would say I've started boxing.
I heard you say boxing. Were you talking to your
Yeah.
sister? I said, you're good.
Yeah. So I'm going boxing, and I couldn't go last week. Something happened, so I couldn't go last week, and it was like. You know, it's like I think I bought my own gloves.
Yeah.
I bought all the kit. I'm committed, and I feel it really is quite energizing, and I feel really good when I've done that. Having said that, I do other exercise as well, and I can't miss out saying that I have made I'm reconnecting spiritually with my faith.
Okay.
So, you know, I talk to God as I'm driving. Whatever song I'm listening to, I'm grateful for it. I've tried to see positive, trying to just do those things that I know are beneficial.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You know, we're just having a conversation.
That's all we do, conversation.
That's all we do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we've covered everything.
No. We will, there's always part two,
There's always
part
another
3,
time.
part 4, up
Yeah.
to part 10.
No. I mean, it is. I mean, I don't know what people think, but I mean, it's what we do. We have a conversation. The conversation, as conversations do, they go back and forth. They go back and forth. And hopefully, people will feel as if, there are things which have been discussed there, which we discuss sometimes. We don't discuss. We don't discuss as normal conversation menopause. So that has been a theme to it. I don't think we discuss as normal that sort of early family bit there, particularly yours there, which, as you were talking of, it prompted me to think, the number of people who've told me things about their early familyhood there, and I've known them for 30, 40 years there, and it's at this point they're either processing it in a good way, or it's actually completely destabilised them.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for your book.
Well, I reckon I've got a book in me. I reckon it's funny, isn't it? I'm sure we all have that experience where we might wake up early in the morning, or it might be just when our minds sort of go to a space on its own, and things just pour out. They just pour out, and you think, wow, there's so much that I could share.
Yeah, you've had a very rich life.
You know,
and isn't that isn't that a great thing to think that, you know, you talked about trauma, but it's been a rich life full of events, and you're here, and you know, most of the time you're in a good place, you know, and I think that's really quite nice. You know, when you stop at that point, you go,
No, that's it. Yeah, because and also you are openly talking about, you know, kind of depression and stuff. Because many of us
we don't talk about it, do we?
We don't.
No,
I mean, because
no.
I always tell people I'm a functional depressive. Yeah. Because we function, but I dare not function because there's a lot of people basically relying on me being able to be at least functional.
Well, like that thing about being about depression. I mean, I know about 40, I went to the doctor because I just couldn't cope.
Yeah.
And he said, we won't put you on antidepressants. And I was really thankful because I thought if I was put on antidepressants, then actually I'd have felt like a bit of a failure. That's how I felt back in 2000. That's when my blood pressure was sort of first diagnosed as such. Whereas I won't think like that now. No. But then I was the product of what being born in 1960 gave you, which is you don't show weakness.
No, that's it. And most of for us, I don't know what the equivalent is for our sisters. That whole constant man up kind of thing, you know what I'm saying?
Well, there's that idea, isn't it, about black women about being sort of like all powerful, all strong, etc. There, which is a load of baloney, you know.
No, it is nonsense.
It's absolute nonsense.
It is nonsense.
There. You know, if you're struggling, you're struggling.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
why
I'm
can't I be
struggling.
afforded that right to be that I'm struggling to have the tears. I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't know how I'm going to manage. You know, that relationship is broken down because I want the same as anyone else does. Well, I want to have a good relationship. I want to have a nice house. I want to be able to take my children on treats and things. You know, everybody wants that, and the black woman wants that as well.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
that's very true. That's very, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Yes.
We are going to revisit. We're going to
I can have a conversation.
Hey, you were the first in here. Like,
You are, yeah,
you are in the inaugural.
Inaugural, yeah, that's it. They broke out this room for us, you know. We're saying, oh yeah, we have Shirley Summers. The Shirley Summers
In the blue room. It's a nice room, though, isn't it?
It's a nice room.
It's very comfortable.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah. They've been very good to us.
No, they've been very,
I mean, again,
very kind.
it's nearly answering that question which was asked last week about, you know, we're talking about doing a partnership with the university for the 25th of November, which is just be a bit wary. And yeah, you're right, but I can only deal with what I've experienced, and to date they've been very, very obliging.
They've been very accommodating.
Yes, they have been.
They've really been very kind and accommodating. And I think, you know, it's we're lucky in that respect, you know.
Yeah.
Very lucky in that respect, you know.
And I think as well, you know, unless something else happens to change your view, I think go from a positive stance. Go from working together in a positive stance, unless there's anything that happens along the way that makes you think, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, sort of be clear about, you know, what their expectations are, yours are, and just keep working with it. There isn't anything, I don't think, that we can't resolve. And
that's the thing, also it's like from the conversations we've had, especially when it comes to the university, at least they give us the impression that they are listening. And then we have to do our due diligence in the sense of what are we expecting from these partnerships that we have with them? What do the conversations look like? Because some of us, for lack of a better word, in our foolishness, we don't, you know, we talk about crossing the T's and dotting the I's. We don't do that.
Because I think sometimes we're not clear ourselves.
It's
and
because
you know, I think you were sort of intimating that, which is that sense of if you have clear expectations, you know, not necessarily, you know, fixed, because you have to have a bit of sort of like movability there. But what is it you want? You know, this is the vision I have. So, you know, for us, our vision is that actually we are able, and David was basically asking us this, get me an audience. That's what David was saying. That was David's line. That was get me an audience.
But that's it.
You know,
No, but that's the thing.
that's fine.
Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and never miss an episode. Until next time, keep those conversations going and the clippers buzzing.